Well, I'm Wally Helke, and I'm Dolores' grandson, and today she's going to talk about some of the jobs that she's held. And I myself just graduated from the University of Chicago and have a job in Chicago where I'll be living for at least the next year, and looking forward to hearing what she has to say. So Grandma, what do you have for us?
What do I have to say? This is called, it could be called, jobs I have had, jobs I have held, work I have done, or keeping busy, or this thing or that, or this whatever. I will start when I graduated from college.
Mhm.
I went straight to teaching high school Latin in
Mhm.
Portland, Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
And there were 2 classes, beginning Latin,
Mm-hmm.
and 2 classes of second year Latin.
Sure.
And it was really a great job. It was a good high school.
Uh-huh.
I had 5 Latin classes, and there were 2 other teachers. Both of them were counselors,
Mm-hmm.
but they both had 2 classes too of Latin. But the upper 3rd and 4th year Latin, so there was 5, 6, 7, like 9 Latin classes that they had in this one high school.
And you taught 5 of them?
And I taught 5 of them,
Wow,
right.
that's a lot.
It was a lot. But it really was really a good job. And of course, the students then who were taking Latin in high school were really, really good. I mean, there was no discipline problem or anything
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
Because they all wanted to get good grades, and it was just very, very, very good. I was 21 when I started, and then I turned 22 during the year. And then we were married out there in Portland, and we moved back to Minnesota. So then when I came back to Minnesota, well, I would have loved to have kept on teaching Latin. But there weren't any Latin teaching jobs in Minneapolis or St. Paul at all when I came back. And so I got a job as an elementary school librarian in one of the Minneapolis suburbs for a couple of years, which was also a very, very, very nice job.
Yeah.
I had graduated from St. Olaf with an English major, so they had a course, teacher librarian course, I think 6 hours, that was all. And so you learned about how you could be a school librarian and still have a teaching job, because most of the libraries were, taken care of by teachers. So I didn't really know that much about library work or how to do everything, but the first year I set up a library in another school in the same school district, where they had gotten money, and they were making a brand new library. And the second year, there was a brand new school that was open, and then I set up the library for that school. And I thought, I don't know anything about this. I mean, how do you start with just, how many thousands of dollars, and you just start ordering books?
Yeah.
I mean, do you order these encyclopedias or these reference, or what is kind of a basic collection that you would have?
Yeah.
And this was elementary school, so of course they had all kinds of facilities there. I mean, information that but it was a big job.
So every book that came to the library, you had selected
I had
as
selected,
worthy
right.
to be shown to elementary school children?
Yes.
That's so cool.
It was cool. And then of course you had to catalog them, and you had to
Yeah.
get them all on the shelf, and you had to the whole thing about having the classes come in, and it was kindergarten through 6th grade, and so they would come in one class at a time, and you would teach them whatever they needed to know about library and about the books and whatever. So that was a very, very, very good year. A couple of years, I mean. Well, then when the children were born, I decided to stay at home. And if I were a young mother right now, I'd probably get a job, and I'd probably, keep on with some kind of a job for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of a different age, I think.
Do you think the expectations were different? Or-
Yeah, I think most of my friends, most of them stayed home and took care of the children and everything. And if they did get jobs, it was probably in, 10, 15 years later or something like that. Which a lot of them did, but they didn't go on to law school or the seminary or anything at
Yeah.
that time right away. So, but I was really very happy to stay at home and to be a wife and to be a mother, and there was plenty to do in PTA and, you know, all kinds of other things like that.
Yeah.
And being real interested in the schools and what the children were doing. I did take some courses through the years at the University of Minnesota and at the seminary, and both in Berlin and in Oxford. There were, but none of them was for any kind of a degree program or particular. Well, at the University of Minnesota, it was for grades, and I could have, but most of them were just kind of for interest,
Yeah.
which was very, very good. When we were in India for the 1 year, then I had an English conversation class each week with seminary students' wives who wanted to learn English and how to speak it. So that was
Sure.
that was a really interesting kind of a time there.
Mhm.
And the same, like in Berlin, we were there in 66, 67, and in Oxford we were there 73 and 74. And there was just absolutely plenty to do all the time, but I didn't take any classes really or do any kind of a degree work at all in either one of those places. So then it's about 1975. We came home from Oxford in 1974. So sometime in that next year I kept, and I can't remember just how old Peter was right then, but maybe just starting high school or so.
Yeah.
And so then I thought, well, what should I do, or what could I do, or should I get a job? And I looked into various things, or should I go to school, or what should I do? And I thought, what is it that I would really like to do? I mean, I had the luxury so that I could just decide. I didn't have to pay, you know,
Yeah.
for anything for you know, maintenance of children's schools or anything like that.
Right.
And so I decided what I would really like to do is to learn Greek. And I thought what I'd really like is just to read the New Testament in Greek. So I signed up at the seminary for the Greek class, which was two quarters of Greek grammar, and then the third quarter was patristic writings, the early church fathers. And so that was just really interesting. I just loved to learn it. And so then I decided, well, I think I will just go on and get a master's degree at the seminary then in New Testament, which I did. It was a 2-year program, and it took me 4 years to go through it, but during those 4 years, then I taught Greek during the summer school each summer, and that was an 8-week course. 1 year it was 12 weeks because it was all of June and July and August. And those were with students who were going to come to the seminary, and Greek was a prerequisite, so they had to have it. So those were just really fun teaching experiences there. It was, but they were all going to go, they'd all been accepted at the seminary. They all knew they had to pass the Greek class, and so, but it was just kind of really fun to have older students like that, and and to be able to have them actually pass the course, and so that was, and they wanted to learn.
Right.
So that was a good experience for those 4 years. Then after that, the religion department at Augsburg College asked me if I to come over and teach a course, which was in the religion department, and I taught there for about 9 years then, on a part-time basis. So I only would teach one course a quarter.
Sure.
No, I think they had semesters, so it was one course a semester.
Okay.
And so I had 2 courses that I taught, The one was Introduction to the Bible. So in one semester, you got the whole Bible, absolutely everything, from Genesis through Revelation. It was, well, it was quite a course, and
Yeah.
of course I didn't know anything about how to go about that, so.
I imagine Revelation was tough to teach among all the books.
Right, it was.
If you have to do all of them.
Well, of course you went over some of them quite lightly. But it was a great course, and I thought afterwards what I'd really like is just to take all kinds of introductory courses.
Yeah.
I mean, introductory courses in physics or chemistry or economics or history or English or, you
Yeah.
know, and so Introduction to the Bible is really a great course to take. And it was good to teach too. And the other one was Introduction to Theology. So then you
Sure.
started with theology just right at the very beginning, you know, the first century, and then all the way up to the present time. And
Yeah.
the whole theology of everything was, that was, again, a very, very interesting course. But again, it was, well, they were mostly freshmen and sophomores because they had I think they had 3 courses that were required in religion. Now, I'm not sure, maybe it's only 2 courses now, but, so these were the kind of the introductory courses that almost everybody took.
Yeah.
And then there were a lot of other professors in the religion department, and then they taught the upper class courses in all kinds of ethics, for
Yeah.
instance, and all kinds of things, comparative religions and so forth. It was part-time, but I spent an awful lot of time on the courses, just an awful lot of time. It took so much preparation. You had to go through the textbooks, and you had to kind of know everything, you know, for yourself. You had to devise how you were going to put the course together, and
Right.
and the syllabus and the tests and the grading, and everything was just brand new for me. I mean, the professors now who teach, of course, maybe have taught the course for 20, 30 years or so, and
Yeah.
you get a whole course together, you know, how you wanted to teach it, and it's different. So I thought, but again, it was really worth teaching.
So you taught those classes for your 9 years?
9 years, I think the last year, I taught a course with a woman. She was actually in the math department, and we taught a course together in feminist theology.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was also very interesting, but I only did that 1 year. She was real interested in doing something like that, and but she needed somebody in the religion department to do it with her, so we did it together, and that
Cool.
was and of course that was a time, you know, probably in I can't remember what year it would have been, but probably in about 89 or so. So a lot of feminist theology was just coming out at that time too. So I got to read all of the feminist theology that was coming out.
Yeah. What did you think of it?
Oh,
when you
I
taught
thought it was absolutely great. Yeah. Some of the women went, you know, really to far extremes, just absolutely, but.
Right.
It's worth a good conversation about. You're probably interested in that too.
I am,
in
absolutely.
feminism. Yeah. Well, that is good. Then Jim had a sabbatical year, and so that was in about 1989 or so. And so I didn't teach that year because I wanted to go with him as much as I could. And then that year they hired a full-time woman professor who had her PhD, and she was full-time. So then I didn't teach anymore at Augsburg after that.
Yeah.
But the sabbatical that year, we were at the cabin actually quite a bit, but we did go to Africa for 3 weeks. We went to Cameroon and to the Central African Republic. And Jim was teaching at a missionary retreat for about a year. I did a couple of sessions too, actually, and I preached one afternoon
Cool.
in the chapel there. And then we just traveled around to all the different mission stations and saw all the people. And it was just really an unbelievable experience for me. I had been in Egypt, but I'd never been in any part of Africa like that. And Cameroon and Central African Republic were just absolutely eye-opening as far as, you know, everything about the people and the church and
Yeah.
the whole economics and Christian, Muslim, and all kinds of things that were part of the whole situation there.
Yeah.
I haven't actually kept up with everything, so I don't know what all has gone on in the church since then, but it was really a great time. Jim had been chairman of the Board of World Missions of our church, so he had traveled quite a bit actually in Africa and had been to all kinds of places in Madagascar and South Africa and you know, Tanzania and Kenya and just every place, but I just had never been there before. Actually, I haven't been back since either, so it's a whole different world, you know,
Yeah.
in Africa.
Oh yeah.
So we traveled to we had a number of shorter trips that year, 89, but also traveled a lot during many of the other years too. Let's see. One summer, I think it was 1984, we were gone for 8 weeks. And we were 2 in East Germany. It was a meeting of the Dietrich Bonhoeffer International Society, but it was put on by the East Germans, so that was just really interesting kind of thing outside of Berlin in a retreat center. And then we traveled in West Germany for about 2 weeks. Actually, we went with 2 other couples and traveled around East Germany quite a bit at that time too. And then we spent 2 weeks in Budapest. There was a Lutheran World Federation meeting for 2 weeks. And Jim was a delegate because he had been on one of the commissions. And so then you look at Budapest, and it was just really a fascinating place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course they had been under the Russians or communism for such a long time. And I don't know, there are a lot of stories to tell from that too, and people that we met. And actually when I start doing something like this, I think of all the people that I have met, and you know, Jim knew probably, but in all of these different places, and think, I'd really like to know what happened to that person or what happened to that, you know.
Yeah.
So I think, well, I have to try and keep up with quite a few of these people through the years. One fall we were gone. Oh, then after Budapest, then we went to Rhodes for 2 weeks. So we were gone for 8 weeks that summer, which was, you know, a good long trip.
Yeah.
And Rhodes, of course, was interesting too, the Greek island there, and all of the things that happened at Rhodes through the many years, as you probably know too.
Yeah, that was really fun.
Yeah, and one fall we were gone for about 5 or 6 weeks. We were in Italy half of the time, and in Greece the other part of the time, and then after Greece, then we went just a cruise of the Greek islands, and then over to Istanbul. Well, of course, then that's another whole, you know, thing to go over to Turkey and Istanbul, and you know, to see all of the stuff there. But that was one summer or fall. Well, then back to my work. After teaching at Augsburg and then being gone for that sabbatical year, then I came back to St. Paul, and I got a job at the seminary library. It was in the rare book room, which was interesting to see all of the rare book collection that they have. Just a lot of people had given them, but really, you know, and you have to put on white gloves and take them out and look at
Yeah.
them and various things. But then I also worked with the Reformation Research Library. The director had grants from Lutheran Brotherhood and some other places too, to get printed books from the Reformation. So Gutenberg was, I can't remember, 1480 or something, about what end of the 1400s. And so these were actually printed books. They weren't manuscripts, they were printed.
Right.
And they were from, I think about 1500 to maybe 1640 or so,
Right.
during the Reformation time.
Mhm.
And they were from collections in Germany and in Central Europe, a lot from Poland, some from Russia, and then some were from Paris, a collection there, and some from the British Library. And actually there were many, many collections. Our biggest one was, and I can't remember the name of that library, but the town where it was Wolfenbüttel in Germany, but it was a big library collection there of Reformation material.
Interesting.
So these professors, several professors from various seminaries, would go over there and then they would make the selection of the ones that they want sent back to this Reformation library that we had.
Yeah.
Which was, really a research library.
Mhm.
And it was on microfilm or microfiche or something. So then we would get all of these boxes back and
Yeah.
what they had chosen. And then they had to be cataloged then. I mean,
Yeah.
they were on microfilm, but they had to be cataloged
Right.
and put on the internet. And then, so I was one of, I think there were maybe 3 of us at that time, who would then catalog these. And they were written mostly in German and in Latin. I could somehow make out enough German and enough Latin so that a lot of it was in Latin, probably the most of them were in Latin. You can make out the title and the author and the place of printing and
Yeah.
the date and something about the content. You have to kind of skim it and find out what the content was, and then search words and so forth. And then there was a template on the computer, and then you would fill in the cataloging for that particular one. And then you had to check to see if it had been cataloged before. And the main places where they were cataloged were in the Harvard Library and the Smithsonian, and then there was a Reformation Library in St. Louis, Missouri. These are Reformation. There would have been a whole lot others of the early printed material, I think, but this was specifically Reformation. And then I would check my cataloging. I mean, if it had been cataloged, most of them hadn't even been cataloged because it was so specific a field.
Sure.
And but I would check my cataloging against those that had already been cataloged before, and see if I agreed with them on the way they had cataloged it, and all of that stuff. And for each one that I did, I had to put my initial down, so they would know who had cataloged this one.
Right.
It was just an interesting thing, and I'd never done any cataloging at all. I mean, I've been in libraries a lot, but I've just never done the cataloging or knew anything about it. So it was extremely interesting work, and you learn just an awful lot about the whole, all of the writers of the Reformation time, and to think that that the printing became available just at the time of the Reformation is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And Gutenberg did have, I'm not sure how much of the Bible he had done, but, the Bible was printed then too.
Right.
So that was, and they were really nice people to live with, to work with, to work with. So then about the last year that I was there, I helped with the arrangements for an international Luther Congress that was held at the seminary.
Mhm.
And this was a lots of work and a lots of detail and all of the people, and you had to be in touch with everybody all the time. But it was Luther scholars from all over the world who
Sure.
were there. And big, you know, you had translations all the time for the various speeches and talks. And so you had translators all the time. And I'm not sure, how many languages there were, but there were people from all over the world, of course, all of Europe and the United States and Canada and all of that, but also from several from South America, quite a few from South America actually, and from South Africa, and from Japan and from Korea, kind of the whole world. You just would have no idea that there would be Luther scholars all over the world.
Yeah.
Well, then I turned 65 and I retired from the library and kind of didn't look for anything like that anymore. And I actually could have kept on there, but I decided I just didn't want to. I did a lot of work for Jim also through the years, editing and correcting and commenting on various papers, for instance. Not the content, but grammar and writing style and, you know, clarity and all things like that. But I worked together with him on that was for the students' papers and so forth. But a lot just with Jim, and we did a lot together on his last book, Consequences. There was a lot of it that we did at the cabin here with a couple of computers, but there was just a lot of conversation, how to go about it, how to organize it, and how to, what is it that you really want to say and how. So that was really a fun thing. I don't remember when it was published, 2001 or 2 or something. Anyway, it was just a really, really great time just working together and kind of doing it all together. And so that was a fun time. Well, now I wish that I would have started on these remembrances several weeks ago when Eric, actually a long time ago, I think, when Eric asked me to do something like this. But it was kind of hard to think of how you would do it and what you would do and how it would work out. And so I just thought about it, but I didn't write anything down. And so I've done just a lot of putting things together here at the cabin, really in a very piecemeal kind of a way. So I think, well, maybe I'll go home and kind of get serious about writing things down, writing and going back over. There are many stories, you know, many stories and many people, and I think I've left out unbelievable amount of things, but I'd like to do something about Steve's death and Jim's death, just kind of, you know, ruminating about all of that, but I think that'll take me a little bit longer to do all of that, so that's for another time, another time. This is the end of this.
I have no complaints.
No complaints?
No, thank you so much for just sharing this. It's something that I'll watch again and
yeah, good.
watch all the other videos that you've done, and they've just
Great.
been so much fun.
And well, it's been very good, and it's been nice just to talk with, you know, one of the grandchildren and to think about all of this. It's been a marvelous time together here.
Oh yeah.
With all of the cousins, really.
Absolutely.
A great time. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Rihanna.
Good.